off. So thanks for joining today. We are going to be talking about two main focuses. One is going to be power objects and how to create them, what they are, how to use them, all that good stuff. And then I'm also going to be talking about protection and protecting your own personal energy, because we're going to create a power object for protection. So those two will kind of feed into each other on this call today. So that is the purpose. So now we're going to just sit and call in spirit. So if you want to take a moment to settle in, just notice your body, maybe close your eyes. And imagine a field outside, or a circle, an opening, some kind in nature. And in the center is a fire. And connect in with the sacred element of fire. And around the fire, just magically, however it shows up in your imagination, there's a circle of water flowing. And connect in with that flowing energy of water. And feel the earth below you, below your feet, or if you're sitting, below your butt. Connecting in with the nurturing energy of Mother Earth. And around you, feel a breeze circling, connecting in and breathing in that nice, clean air and the energy of that element of air. And now imagine that everyone on this call currently and anyone who joins in the future is standing around that fire in a circle, knowing that in the non-ordinary reality, there's no space or time. So anyone joining now or later is there with us together in this circle. And take a moment to call in any of your guides, helpers, angels, or well ancestors to come and join in the circle. And we ask Spirit to help us form a loving and supporting community. We ask for guidance and support in building connections with one another and with our spirit guides. We ask for help creating open, clear communication with spirit helpers so that we can be guided to live the best lives that we can for ourselves, for our community, for one another. And imagine that everyone here in the circle connects with you in gratitude and appreciation, sending you love and thanks for being here today. And feel that love and gratitude and connection filling your heart. Breathing that right into your heart center. And now breathing out from your heart center, love and appreciation to all of those in the circle, all those who've shown up on the call today, all those who will be listening or watching in the future, and all those guides and helpers that have come. Breathing out from your heart center, welcoming, loving appreciation for all of those who have come. And now breathing in love and gratitude for yourself, thanking yourself for being open, for being curious, for being willing to accept new spiritual concepts and practices, and that you can take in any of those that you try out and that ring true for you and that help, and you can throw out anything that doesn't. Just being appreciative of your own showing up in your own discernment. Perfect. Take a deep breath in. And on the exhale, just kind of open your eyes and come back into the present moment, back into the here and now and into the call. So thank you for that. So, a little bit of history on power objects. We'll start out with that. Power objects have been available and present and in use in all different kinds of shamanic traditions on all the continents and all the different cultures for time immemorial. They have found many burials with objects that are of reverence, and especially with folks that are seen as the shamanic or the important person in that group. And throughout many traditions, there have been a communal power object, so power objects that are created by and for the community and that help create certain rituals, help bring power to certain rituals. Oh, we have one more person coming in here. And those objects have been used for ceremony, for creating sacred space, for creating protection. All, each culture connects with them in different ways. But they've been something that have been maintained through the generations. And what that means is that through the generations, those power objects have been added to by generation after generation, and they've been really amazing and very powerful. Um, Often there have been a keeper of the object. So sometimes that's a shaman, sometimes that's a person whose their whole job is just to really focus and um, be the keeper of that object. And it was seen as a big responsibility. And you'll hear a little bit why. It's not going to be a huge responsibility for you necessarily in this one, but you'll learn about how the power that goes into an object can languish, just like anything else. If you ignore it, it will start to fade away. And so it's something that we want to maintain and continue to keep. And so the keeper of power objects historically in different shamanic traditions and cultures have kept those for generations and generations, putting more and more energy into it. So I can't even imagine what those objects would be like. They must just radiate power. And unfortunately, through some non-happy historic events, a lot of those have languished in museums and private collections and things where they've been taken away from the community, which is sad. But there are traditions who are still keeping that alive, and it doesn't have to be done in a communal way. You can absolutely create power objects for yourself, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So some of the uses and benefits of having a power object are in a similar way that your altar is a connection and sort of an anchoring of energy into the world. A power object has a very similar um, kind of role. So you can dedicate a guide, you can dedicate it to a specific guide and have it sort of amplify that connection with that guide. You can also use it for protection, which is what we'll be doing a journey and focusing on today. And you can use it for all different intentions. People use it for manifestation, for if there's a certain goal, a certain thing, outcome that you're working at, you can store energy in the power object to help with that. You can do ancestral work and make one dedicated to your ancestral line. And then anytime you're doing work with ancestral line, if you're doing ancestral healing or energy clearing, if you're just having a fight with your mom, whatever it is, you can pull out that and kind of help clear and help do healing work for ancestral lines, or just holding that ancestral energy at the highest levels of vibration. So to try and keep it healthy, things like that. And you can do some fun things with it, like imbibing it with creative energy. So if you have a creative outlet, if you're a painter, dancer, singer, writer, whatever, fill in the blank, musician, you can use that to really open that muse, that creative channel, that intuitive flow of creativity, and use the object for that, so that when you are going to do that creative activity, you can pull it out and have that help and amplify that flow. So those are just sort of a few playful things that you can do. And really, the sky is the limit. Anything that you want to put into a power object, you can. Just bear in mind it takes some work to maintain, and we'll talk about that as well. So I'm going to circle back right now. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about energy protection and what that means and what that looks like, and then we'll circle back to bringing the power object into the conversation, and then we'll tie the two together with a journey at the end to create a power object. So for power objects, for energy is something that they've found out. I've talked about this in past sessions and past calls, that everything at the smallest level of matter turns out to be nothing, turns out to be no matter. They found out, through the science that we have available to us now. At the quantum level, when you get down to beyond the atoms, it's actually just vibration. There's just an energy vibration that is at the core of everything. And that's really the stuff that life is made of. And it's in everything, man-made, or natural. Of course, the energy is different in things that are man-made than things that come from natural. But then there's also the connection of the two, right? Where we take a piece of wood and carve it into something. So there's a connection. You can also have something be both man-made and natural, but the energy is going to be a little bit different from something that's been chemically produced than necessarily natural objects. But at the heart of it, everything below, at the quantum level, which is the level below or smaller than, deeper than the atomic level, is the quantum level, and that's all just energy. So energy flows through the two things that I've talked about before: intention and focus, which is at the heart of all shamanic work, all energy work, really. So we can use intention and focus to change the nature of energy of certain things, and to put energy into certain things. But energy it's naturally generated and flows through everything, and it naturally generates and flows through us. And there's ancient practices that have become more common nowadays that most folks have heard of, like Tai Chi and yoga, or prana. Actually, yogic traditions use prana as their life. They see that as life energy that they manipulate and that they change, that they work on in themselves. And the same thing with qi and in Chinese medicine. Those are just two that are commonly known. They're ways of manipulating energy in ourselves. Most often, it's a focus of bringing in life energy in a way that flows properly, so that it's not getting stuck, so that it's not getting stagnant, so that it's not getting stale, and those sorts of things. So most people are familiar with that type of thing, and that's really the same kind of energy that we're talking about today. And it can be drawn. We do generate our own life energy, recycles and regenerates, but we also can draw energy from the earth. We can draw it from objects, we can draw it from breath work, and we can draw it from each other. So it is something, while we can bring in energy into ourselves from other places, we also have somewhat of a finite amount of energy on our own. I use that word hesitantly, finite, because there is no end to it. We will always have energy flowing so long as we are drawing breath and we're alive in the world. And even after that, we still have energy. It's just no longer in the physical body. It's no longer animating the physical body. But the energy that we have, we the reason that we have practices like Tai Chi and prana work and breath work and things like that is because, especially in cultures where we're not taught how to regulate energy and how to recognize it and move it through us, we can easily run low. And I think everyone knows what that feels like, to just be running really low on our life energy. It's either stuck and stagnant and it's not moving, or we're just not really generating it, pulling it in through our life breath, through the earth, through the natural resources, through the food that we eat, things around us in a healthy way. And so because of that, we need to be aware of our energy and protecting it from others. And that's in both directions. We don't want anyone pulling our energy away from us. And we don't want anyone putting in their energy into us, especially unless it's an exchange that's mutual. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. But the reason we need that protection is because we don't want to take on unfamiliar exchanges of energy with people that we don't know, or we don't maybe trust, or we already have a vibe that we shouldn't be trusting. And then we just don't want people sucking out the energy that we have available to us. Even when people do healing work with energy, in shamanism, there's the concept of the hollow bone. And that's just seeing universal energy channeling through you. You work as a hollow bone, meaning that there's nothing in the middle. You're the container. You're the hollow bone that things move through. And that way, you don't want to be giving of your own, because anybody who's done energy work who gives of their own energy will tell you how exhausted they are at the end of the day and how long it takes them to recharge. And that's not the healthy way to be giving energy. We want to be the hollow bone and pull in that life source, that prana, that chi from the universal source, and be letting that flow through us out to anyone that we're working with. We don't want to be giving it of our own, because then again, you're exhausting that source, and it's not finite, but you can get yourself pretty darn low and feel pretty tired. So that's why we want to work with protecting our own energy. The things that we generate or take in from the earth and from the elements around us, we want to keep. We want to keep and be using for ourselves. And then anything that if you ever do healing work or energy work, you're letting energy from universal source flow through you, so that at the end you should actually feel really charged, really, like that some of that energy is going to come and stay with you, and then some of it's going to come through, and but you should feel really energized at the end of whatever practice you're doing. And if you're not, then you need to be aware that you're using your own energy. So that's a little bit about kind of how it flows. As far as connecting with one another, energy is one of the ways that we really recognize one another, that we hit it off with other people, folks who are going to have a similar energy. And again, remember, energy is vibration. So it kind of goes out and it resonates in the same way that if you have tuning forks, at two different levels, they're going to resonate and they're going to connect and they're going to find that middle ground. One tuning fork if you ping one tuning fork and the other one isn't pinged, it will start pinging at the same level as the one that you did ping, if that makes sense. And that's vibration, that's sound vibration, but it's a type of vibration that we can all relate to. If you have two people together and one person's very, very low in energy and the other person's very high, guess what's going to happen? Without protection, the low person is going to be feeding that off. And you can consciously, if you know how, you can consciously open that hollow bone and just let that, if you're aware that that person's pulling your energy and you feel like you want to, you can set the intention and focus to be the hollow bone and let universal energy come through you to that person. But that takes some work and some training and some practice. If you don't have that, that's okay. The best thing to do is just protect yourself, and so that they're not pulling, again, your energy off of you. And I think nod your head if you've had the experience of feeling totally fine, feeling absolutely great, whatever, and then you either go to work or you sit on the bus or you have a conversation with a friend, and 5 minutes later you're exhausted for no apparent reason whatsoever. Yeah, most people can relate to that. So we know what that feels like. That's someone drawing off your energy. That's an experience where you've sat next to someone who's just in need. And most of the time, so we call those, there's kind of the term in the energy world of energy vampires. And a lot of times that has almost a, like a, I don't know, horror movie kind of vibe to that word. It's not necessarily, the person often is not draining you on purpose. Most energy vampires, like most of us, have no training in energy and how it works. And then when they're low, then they're just pulling energy off of other people and they're not knowing that they're doing it. So it's not that there's a malicious intent. It's just that that's how they work. And they probably don't know. They probably go away from that meeting that you felt so tired with. They feel a little bit better because they've taken some of your energy, but they don't know that. And what they'll do is they'll say, wow, I really like hanging out with that person. I feel so good. And then, they think of it in psychological terms. I just really like that person. We hit it off really well, but that's because they are pulling from you. And our energy can let us know. It can give us warnings too. There's folks that are unsafe. There's folks that have malicious and do have malicious intent, not necessarily energetically, but they aren't there to be your friend. They're trying to do something, and that's where your energy will resonate in a negative way. So I think we all nod your head if you've had the experience of, for some reason, meeting a person for the first time and just having a really bad vibe and wanting to pull back and not be around that person. Yeah. With no reason, and sometimes, especially with women, not always, but we're trained to be polite and be nice, and a lot of times that instinct can be trained right out of us because we often are, be nice, be polite, accept people who they are, and then we turn off that intuition that says, where our energy is saying, yeah, something's there and it's not good, and this person's not a safe person to be around. So being in tune with your energy is a really great way of tapping into that intuition around the people around us. If they resonate at a similar frequency, they'll kind of feel familiar. So even a brand new person, those people who you just meet and you just like for whatever reason, you can just tell this is someone I would love to be friends with. That's someone who's on either the same frequency as you or a higher frequency of energy resonation. And so our energy can really help us connect in healthy ways with other people by warning us when someone's not healthy, and then also just letting us know when they are and when there's somebody that we want to be around. So that's just sort of some of the flow of energy, and like everything, so thoughts are energy, and can be a potent energy, and emotion are also energy, and they're connected. Usually there's a thought first and then an emotion, and sometimes those thoughts are subconscious, so we're not always aware of them. But those are emotions are like superchargers for energy. When we really just love someone, they can feel that. There's an energy exchange that comes from the heart, and that connects us to people in a positive way. So friends, family, nod your head if you've ever had the experience that you either was just thinking of someone and you got a phone call, a text, or an email from that person you hadn't heard from in a long time. Yeah, that's someone you're corded to. That's someone who you have that, a cord is kind of just a connection. Think of it as a literal just energy cord coming from you to that person. And we do that with people that we're close with or in close proximity with. Sometimes it can just be coworkers that we're around in the office all the time. Sometimes it can be, but often it's friends and family and romantic partners. That's usually who we cord with. Courting can become problematic when we sever those relationships or those relationships go sour. So I'll put this in the notes when I post this call in Mighty Networks. In the notes, I'll put a link to my YouTube. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, I do have a guided meditation for decording. And that's for folks. If you have, one of the most common ways is just you have either a friendship that goes south or a relationship that goes south. And those people are often still, first of all, they're already connected to a cord. Usually they're already corded. And then they're having powerful emotions. And those thoughts and those emotions are really, they're going back and forth towards each other, and they're just reinforcing that cord. And because there's a cord, you're going to be more in tune with that person's thoughts and emotions. That's how you know that your friend's about to call. That's how you know that your sister's in trouble, or you just have a need to call a family member, a sibling, or loved one because you're just worried about them. You call them and you find out that they're having a terrible day, or they just got fired, or something, they broke a leg, whatever. So there's those positive energy ones, but when you're corded with someone you don't like, all of that hate, all that negativity, all that resentment, that's going to come right through the cord too. So it is important to be aware of when you are corded with folks and when they're unhealthy, when those cords are folks people that you want to cut out of your life, you want to cut them out energetically as well. So I'll put that link to that YouTube recording, so you can listen to that if you want. But most of the time, and those often will fade on their own. Usually, you have a bad relationship, you break up, you both move on. However long it takes, one partner might take a lot longer. So you might have moved on, but the other person hasn't, and they're still sending. At that point, there's what's called like arrows or barbs, and those are that person like shooting that connection still at you. It's almost instead of that beautiful light golden cord, you can see it as like an actual arrow hooking into you. That person's still trying to find connection to you, and when we don't want that, again, that's a time to really cut that off. But most of the time, it will fade if you don't cut it. Usually both people will go their own ways, and eventually, however long it takes, both people kind of let that go and whatnot. However, if there's, like I said, thoughts and emotions are superchargers for energy, and we can shoot energy at anybody without being courted or not courting. So folks who we broke up with 5 years ago, but something just strongly reminded them of you, or they're being triggered by another person who's similar to the way they feel about you, all of a sudden they can reopen that and shoot those barbs at you. So if in those moments where you're having, someone you haven't thought of in years, 5 years, 10 years ago, you had a problem with XYZ, and that person all of a sudden keeps coming to mind, like, why am I thinking about this ex? Like, I didn't see them. I haven't, I have no idea why nobody mentioned them. I don't know why they're popping up. Consider doing that decording, because they're probably something in their life triggered a thought about you, an emotion about you, and they're sending you barbs. So those are some ways that energy work. And again, it's intention and focus. And just a quick anecdote from a teacher that I worked with at one point. She gave an example of, she was having her house renovated, or she had just had her house renovated, and she found these really lovely antique, I don't know, fixtures or like faucets, like you can tell that I'm not a renovator or a big house, but faucets and the old fashioned dials that you turn on the hot and the cold and the faucet. And she had those in the sink or in the bathroom, in the kitchen, and sort of throughout the house. And she'd done a ton of work finding them, and they're very important to her. They're expensive, etc. And her house cleaner didn't know that they required a certain kind of cleaning because they were older. The materials made out of something slightly different, and she polished them, cleaned them, whatever, with something that stripped off a layer and damaged them in some way. And so, and my teacher's a good-hearted person. She's kind, she's compassionate, but we all have times where we're just like, shit, So, after she left, she came home and realized after the woman had just left, and so they'd missed each other. And she came home and she saw that, and she just, the emotion hit her naturally. We're human. And she was furious, really furious at that woman, just like in her mind, just cussing her out. And, not thinking she would never act like that in person to that lady, but they'd have a conversation, I'm sure, but it would go more politely. But she found out that at the same time that she was just infuriated inside and having like thoughts and feelings that were supercharged, the woman fell and she broke her kneecap, and she was injured somewhat seriously in the fall. And timing wise, when she talked to her about it later, it seemed like it was right at around that same time. So I don't mean that as, it's a cautionary tale. I don't mean it to freak you out. We all of us, all our lives are having, especially in Western culture, we're not taught about these things. So don't let it freak you out every time you get angry at someone, but just know that you can put that same protection to keep your own things in, to keep things from going to people. If you want to have a moment where you're just going to vent about someone, that's okay. Just, do that within a protective bubble, so that energy is not going out to that person, if you think about it, because that's how powerful energy can be. And when we add emotion to it, it supercharges it. And that's why focus and intention is so important. We want to be intentional about the kind of energy that we're sending out into the world. And, don't let it completely freak you out about negative thinking, because we're all human and we need to process. We don't want to be the kind of people who stymie every impulse of anger because we're afraid it's going to put energy out. Just, again, keep it in a container and, then let it go, or process it, with here's what I'm feeling, here's how I'm feeling it. That'll keep it in you processing, rather than in you in a positive way, not like stuck in you. You're processing it, it's flowing. But if I'm angry at George, whoever George is, I'm, if I can say, I'm recognizing that I'm angry at George. I'm angry at George because I feel that George is XYZ. Those kind of conversations that in a therapist's room with, in couples therapy where they're, telling you to own your feelings. And it's true in an energetic way as well, because if you are thinking those thoughts really at that person, like, damn you, and I, you did this and that, even if they're just thinking it and you're not saying it, they're super charged with emotions and you're sending barbs out to that person. So if you can keep it to a way of, I'm angry because I perceive that you did this thing and this hurts me because, in those sorts of ways where that puts a sort of a psychological containment around it. So any questions so far? I know I'm throwing a lot of information out really fast. Okay. Is everything making sense so far?
I had a question.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, I do feel like I can sense people's vibes and, if they're not a good match, except for with romantic partners. I feel like sometimes there's some interference there.
Yeah.
I just was wondering if you had anything to comment about that.
That's very, very common. When things are closest to us, we have that desire to want to see it in a certain way.
Okay.
And so, like if we're excited about someone, we don't want to see red flags, right? We want, in the same way that psychologically we will ignore red flags and things about people, we do that energetically as well.
Okay.
So there is sort of a way of being too close, when you're looking at a photograph like this, you can't see it at all. You see something dark in front of your face. So you can do meditations. You can do, call in your guides, do a journey, call in your guides. That's a really great way to both facilitate that relationship with your guides and then also get third party information, get their advice and their things. And then, just breathing into trying to be in a neutral place. And you can, with your guides, go on a journey for the intention to feel the energy of that person, of that potential romantic partner, or maybe they already are a romantic partner, and just see it, go to the upper world or the lower world and call in your guide and just say, can you help me feel that energy? Or just a dialogue with them and let them feel the energy and tell you what they think, what they have to say about it. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, sometimes just asking other people to do that for you, it can be helpful too.
I was gonna say, like, when you said third party, like, yeah, I feel like sometimes, like, I would like to tell other people about the energy I feel or their partner. I don't know if I always do, but
yeah, that's the sticky thing with shamanism. There's a big emphasis on permission. Yeah. So I always feel like a lot of times if you say to someone, I feel like I'm getting an energetic or an intuitive hit on the person that you're with or about your relationship, and I'm wondering if you'd be open to hearing that. And I like almost never will someone say no. Even if it ends up being information that they don't like, they still want to, we want to know. If somebody says, hey, I have some information about you, who, rarely does someone say, no, thank you. But, just preface it with, this is what's coming through for me. I don't know if it rings true or not for you, but I felt something putting a little pressure on me to offer it. So and then just let them go with it. They don't even have to react. They don't have to say anything. They don't have to say they agree or disagree, just let them sort of run with it. But yeah, with shamanic work, you're really not supposed to do anything without the person's permission. Because, free will and karma and all of that, we all have our own stuff and sometimes we're not ready. Same thing with, if you think of like addiction, you can do an intervention. You can let people know that you're worried. You can let people know that there's this opportunity for healing available, but ultimately it's up to them. And if they're not ready for it and they don't want it, they're not going to get anything from it anyway. So it's useless. it's a waste of time. So yeah. Any other questions so far? Okay. So let's see. I might add in my notes here. So with power objects, one of the things, again, it comes down to intention and focus. Those are our two main core things that are elements that are always there in all shamanic work that we do. And because you can you can protect yourself. Anyone who's worked with me, where we've done any kind of energy work, then you know that I probably guided you through a process of seeing a pyramid of light and then pulling that pyramid of light around your body. And that's protection. That's all it takes. You're setting the intention of protection and you have an image in your mind. And that's enough to just immediately boom, pop in energetic connection or protection around you. The problem is, as humans, we can't hold that focus all the time, right? Maybe the Dalai Lama can, I don't know, but I certainly can't. So, if there is ever a time that you just want that, you walked into a situation, you're like, whoa, energetically, this is weird, or I feel off, or even I don't know, it doesn't matter. You can put in that protection. Just imagine that, and it can be whatever. Some people, some energy teachers will say like a golden egg. Sometimes the color is different, sometimes the shape's different. Honestly, I personally don't think it matters. I think there are some certain symbols that resonate with protection and with spirituality and things like that. So, some people, like a Christian, might think of a cross, holding a cross or something. So if there's a symbol that works for you, use that. Ask your guides. Again, I always go back to journeying and asking your guides what's the best way to imagine protection around you. Absolutely, you can ask your guides to protect you. They will also do that. But when we're doing it, so let's say we have that pyramid of gold and white light around us, but we're going into, I don't know, downtown Portland right now. It's a place that I feel a lot of bad energy. Not that it's all bad by any means, but there are whole camps of people, and this is no judgment or political statement on homelessness or anything like that. But when folks are in despair, when there's a feeling of hopelessness, when there's potentially mental illness, potentially drug addiction, those are big ways that people become porous to negative energies. So not only might they be coming from a negative place internally, but they're opening themselves up, not intentionally, but just from the place that they're in, to draw in other sticky entities of negativity that are going to just reinforce that negative feeling. And so if you're walking through places like that, or you're going to meet that friend for lunch who you always feel drained and tired after talking to or spending time with, you can do the pyramid of light or whatever symbol that you use, but you're not going to be able to talk to that person for an hour or 2 hours and still keep that in mind. And so that's where the power objects come in. That's where we can infuse that protection, that intention, and that focus into an object that will hold that intention and focus for us, so that we don't need to. Yay, because who wants to sit around thinking about something for hours and hours and hours? So that can help you help protect you from those kinds of things. And even if you just have a friend that's really negative, we all have folks that are just negative Nellies that just want to complain and complain and complain. And we all are complainers too, no judgment. We are that person at times, for sure. But there are some folks that sometimes that's the focus of whenever you get together with them, they just want to tell you about all the things going wrong. And that's a good time to have your power object with you, because that, again, thoughts and emotion are going to create that negative energy, and that can just either draw off of you, or it can attach to you. So we want to protect ourselves from that. So with the power object, like I talked about before, all matter vibrates, right? It has a vibration. And there's certain objects, especially natural objects. Crystals are a really, really good way of keeping energy. They're very good at holding energy and intention. That's why there's so much work with crystals. And if you've ever heard the terminology programming a crystal, that's exactly what we'd be doing if you're using a crystal for that. But you can also use wood, you can use metal. There's different objects that people have used throughout history. But again, natural objects are really good. Sometimes people will do carvings out of wood or metal, or things that are shaped into where the symbolism of the shape also has meaning and purpose. So it's just bringing that energy into that vibrational level, that quantum level, and that object will hold it. But again, like I said earlier, it will not stay. So it will hold it for a while, and certain objects like crystals will hold it for a longer while than others. But they do need to be maintained, and it's something that we want to do with intention, with focus, and with some regularity. So those are some things to keep in mind. Let's see. So in order to make them, we are going to do a journey for that, and we're going to both do it first on the imaginal and the non-ordinary reality or imaginal realm, which I remember I use those two interchangeably. They're the same thing in my mind. Um, and then we're going to do it in physical reality. So in other words, we're going to do a journey, and you're going to imagine that, you're going to take that object into the journey with you by holding it in your mind, by picturing it. You're going to hand it to you're going to set intention. I'll guide you through all this. You don't have to remember this. I'm just letting you know how it's going to flow. You'll be handing it, telling your guide what you want, what your intention is, handing it to them. They will do what they do to put the energy into it, and that might be something different. Every guide's going to have their own way, so whatever their guide does to put that energy in, and then they're going to hand it back to you, and then you're going to ask your guide to return you back into normal ordinary realities. So remember, you do your journey backwards. If you went down a tree, you're going to come back up the tree. If you jumped off a mountain, went up a rainbow, you're going to come back the other direction the same way. So they're going to return you to non-ordinary reality. Then you're going to pick up your object and you're going to blow. You're going to hold it into your hands. You're going to focus your intention and blow that energy into the object. So then it's done both on an energetic world and the not ordinary reality with your guide's help, which really it's done at that point. But again, we just like to, we're physical beings. We live in the dense material world, so we want to also do something in that world to blow the energy into it. Does anybody have any questions about that? Again, I'll guide you through it, so you don't have to remember that. You're muted.
Do we need to have the object with us?
Yeah, if you're going to do it today, you can
Okay.
have the object with you. Do you want to get one real quick, or?
Yeah, I just bought these amethyst earrings, and I thought that might be, something I could have with me.
Yeah, that is a good point. Thank you for saying that. That reminds me of something I forgot to say. So there's different kinds of I guess I want to say levels of power objects. If it's a favorite object that you wear all the time, like a pendant or a bracelet or a ring, whatever, something that you wear often, it doesn't mean that you can't make that a power object. But the kind of power object that we're doing today is, and I would say use that more for just like focusing crystal intention, just focusing intention and blowing into it. But what we're doing today is creating a little bit of a larger charge by bringing it into the non-ordinary reality and having our guides charge it. And you could do your earrings, but here's what I would suggest is that the power object, and we'll talk about maintenance a little bit more after, or I can just talk about it now. We'll talk about it now. So to maintain the object, like I said, you want to be doing some regular, holding it and blowing that energy again, holding focus. Before you touch it, you want to get the focus in mind. So center in, few deep breaths, grounding, bring yourself into a clear state of mind, and then state your intention, hold that focus, and then pick your object up and blow that intention into it. That's how you're going to basically recharge it and keep it going. You also, a really good idea is to keep it on your altar, because your altar is a place where you go to create power on a daily basis. And so that energy is going to continue to foster, that it's a place of power. And so keeping that on your altar is good. You also want to keep it generally covered if you can. Not if you can, I know you can't, but putting it even just a little cloth over it or in a little box or something. Mine, so I brought this to show. This is a little pine needle basket that I made. And it has an opening, so it's not like it's super covered or anything. But one of the objects that I use, my main object for protection, is my mala. So they're just beads of different kinds of stone, crystal. And that's my power object. And the reason so I use it only when I know that I'm going into a session, because I want to make sure that the energies that are coming in through the session are positive. And that's another way that I protect myself and my clients from that. If I'm doing any kind of anywhere, and I do like everything that I've just said. If I'm going to meet a friend for lunch who I know is a negative Nelly, and I'm just going to, I feel a little bit drained after that person, I will wear that protection. If I'm going into places, I was doing work with the homeless for a while, a few months back, and that definitely, in a place like that, like I said, there are entities that just love to clomb on to folks that are already having a hard time, unfortunately. So I'd wear it in places like that. But I don't want to wear it every day. I didn't, if it
Mhm.
was my very favorite piece of jewelry that I just love to wear every single day, I'm not always in places like that. And that's going to be sort of just draining off. We just want to think of it as like a battery. You're just charging, charging, charging,
Okay.
and you want to pull it out when you want to use it for that specific use, and then put it back on its charger. So if
Okay.
it's earrings that you love that you want to wear all the time, or just
Well,
match up.
I just bought them, and I mean, I even asked. I was like, "Are these real amethysts?" Because I just was feeling like, that that could be some kind of, like you're saying, protection or something when I need it. I actually don't tend to wear jewelry every day. So,
Yeah, so then that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah,
okay.
I would just say don't pick, for people listening in the future, don't pick your favorite object or your favorite necklace that you just want to wear every day. You can still
Mhm.
charge that. I wear this pendant with frequency. It's a lapis, and it is charged because it's a crystal. I do have a charge for it, but it's not something that I'm um, I just have it's more of a light intention. I don't expect the same work from it that I do from my mala, that's my protective mala, because that's like, I need that to be serious business, because when I need protection, I need it. Sometimes I'm working with things that come through that are um, big
Right.
and dark. And so I want that with me. So that's kind of, does that make sense? Kind of the difference between like sort of everyday just jewelry things that you still, like I said, you still might put intention with those. There's nothing wrong with it, but you don't want to end up with like 15 objects on your altar that all have like multiple different things and trying to keep all of that power in there all the time. You can if you want to. It's a lot of upkeep. But this way, you've got just those few things that have really strong intention that you're visiting on a regular basis and kind of recharging and keeping. And the reason to keep it covered is just, again, there's going to be energy in your home when people pass by your altar, when people come into your home, they bring energy. And so the reason to keep a little bit of cover over it is just so that everyday energy that's coming in, if you come home and you're in a bad mood, or, you have a friend over and they're in a bad mood, or someone's venting or whatever, you just want it protected where it's a little bit safe, a little bit removed from the everyday energy that's going around in your home or wherever your altar is. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. So feel free to use your earrings, like if that's what you want to, use them for that intentionality. That's super okay. Okay, so let me see if I've forgotten to say anything. Just again, the energy will wane with neglect. So put it, not a good reason to put it on your altar is not only because your altar has power, but if you're doing daily ritual, if you're coming to your altar on a regular basis, then you see it there and you're reminded to blow energy into it again with focus and intention, and not let that wane, because just, again, like even a battery that just sits, is going to eventually start to lose some of its, actually does it, I don't know if that's true. um, let's pretend it's true. It will start to just sort of lose its energy. So we do want to keep putting that in. And really, the more that you put it in, the more you're increasing the potency of that object. So if you want to do it every single day as part of your ritual, then that object is just going to get stronger and stronger. And I can tell you that, like, I've had objects where they've gotten to a point where just passing by my altar, I'm like, whoo, I can feel the wave of energy coming off of it. So they can get really quite powerful, which is good. That's what we want. Um, so does everybody ready to do the journey? Okay. So for the new folks today, I'm gonna just do. Oh, actually, wait. Let me change the sound. I forgot. I have to up or change something in the settings with the sound so you can hear my drumming. 1 second. Okay. So I'm gonna do a sound test here. Thumbs up if you can hear that. You can still hear my voice, okay? Understand my voice, okay? Okay. So the drumming, for the new folks, the drumming pace is this. And when it's a signal to come back, when it's saying, hey, wrap things up, tell your guide anything else you need to say, and then ask them to bring you back, then you get a pause with, and then you get a fast. The fast is the return. So when the fast is going back up your tree or back down your rainbow or however you got where you're going. It's just a return. So the change, the pause, and the slower beats are saying wrap up, and the fast is return. So, and then when we return, because we're not totally done with our journey, when we're done with our journey, this time we're gonna finish the journey. So don't have the power object touching you. Have it somewhere that you can find it, like, you know, right beside you somewhere where you can just reach for it. And we'll do the journey, and we'll have the energy moved in the non-ordinary reality, and then we'll wait to pick up the object in our hand. Once we have the focus of intention and focus down, then we'll blow it. You just literally hold it in your hands and blow into it with that intention. All right. Okay. So go ahead and settle in. Take your whatever posture. Get ready. We'll just drum a little to get you into the zone. Go ahead and go to the place that you go to meet your guide. Place out in nature where you find your tree to go down or your rainbow to jump up. Call in your guide, power animal guide, whoever you're working with today. You can go lower world or upper world, doesn't matter. Go ahead and state your intention to create a power object for protection. Your guide, my intention is to create a power object for protection. Now journey to whichever world, lower world or upper world. Come into the world that you're going to be in. Bring your object there by holding it in your hands in the imaginal realm. Imagine that you're holding it. You can feel it. Maybe you can see it. Notice its texture, its color, its features. Not visual, that's okay. Just pretend that you can imagine it. That's all it's needed. Attention, focus. Holding it in your hands, ask your guide to create a power object for protection of this thing that you're holding. Then hand it to your guide and let them do that in whatever way they do it. Created that power object for you. They'll hand it back to you. Like, you can ask your guide for any message you want to say about it, any way that they want to describe using it, anything at all. ready to thank your guide, gratitude and appreciation for them creating this power object. Ask them to return, turning you back to the beautiful place where you started. Good. So again, clearing your mind and holding that focus, that intention. I make this object into a protective object. I blow in protection into this object and then pick it up in your actual physical hands. Hold it in your hands and blow protective energy into the object. Perfect. And I like to just end everything with a minute of gratitude. So just thanking the object, thanking your guide, thanking yourself. Good. And then come back into the here and now. Perfect. And just trusting a lot of, in the beginning, some shamanic work sometimes feels really powerful and strong, and sometimes it feels like, I'm not really sure if that worked. And that's okay. Just trust the process. Just trust that it worked. Trust that your guide showed up and that that it worked, and that so over time you'll just want to again get into that quiet place. If you want to do the whole journey again each time and do both the other world and in this world, you can. But because your guide has already imbued that with that protective energy, really their work is kind of done. So actually the best way to recharge, I would say, if you're going to use your guides, is just to, again, set the intention and focus, clear your mind, and call your guide in and let them know that you're doing the blowing in to recharge, and ask them to help you do that. Because their part is done. So yeah, we don't want to keep asking them to repeat it. But so just again, every, once a week, I would say at minimum, if you want to have a really good, strong power object, but you can absolutely do it daily. And just blow that in, just clear your mind, set the focus and intention before you touch the object, take it out of its cover, its box, whatever, blow into it, and then set it back down. And another good practice is cleaning it after you've been out. So after you've used that power object and you've taken it out and it's done its job with you, you can use a little bit of sage, a little bit of Palo Santo, copal, whatever your favorite, just lost the word that I'm looking for. Clearing, that's not it, but you're clearing, smudging, thank you, there we go. Use your favorite smudging incense or resin or whatever, and just use that. You can also use, there's certain crystals that do clearing that don't need to be cleared themselves, and that will clear the things that are around them. Whatever you want to use, it doesn't really matter. But just when you've taken it out into the real world and it's done its job, it may have done some protecting by absorbing. Usually they just deflect the energy coming, but it's always good just to make sure that it didn't get anything stuck to it and that it's cleared out. So clear it and then set the intention again, and then put it back on your altar and continue to do that. Do you guys have any questions? All right. So go ahead and, just find a home for it. It can just be a really simple cloth, but anything that's got meaning, anything that you make also, that's why I have mine in something that I made, very crude, very lopsided basket, but I made that, and I made the basket with the intention of holding that. So even if you just have a scrap of cloth, you have an old favorite shirt that's got holes in it and you're not going to wear it anymore, just, cut a little bit of it. And, just with intention that I'm creating this cloth to cover my protective things. Again, attention and focus. Everything that we do creates that energy, creates that sacred space, and pulls in some of that spirit energy into it with that intentionality. So recharge that again and again. And if you want, you can use, like I said, you can do the same practice and with other objects, and have fun with things like, your creativity stone, or your, whatever, something with manifestation. Is anyone here still looking for the perfect home to move? I know that's been okay. So you might create a stone for that. Just picturing yourself having found the home. I wouldn't go into tons of detail of the home, because you don't want to lock yourself into something, have a stone that's putting out these specific things, when the home might actually there might be a perfect home that's slightly different than what you imagine. But just see yourself vaguely. You can just have a white wall behind you. You don't even have to see anything, but just like in that home, and feeling so comfortable and so pleased and so relaxed and so quiet and peaceful, all those things that you want. And just hold that in mind again before you touch it, like in really just holding that feeling of home, of loving your home, and then blowing that into it. And if you want to do the journey again, then you can do the journey and get your guide to help you put that information in there. So yeah, so if you guys want, jump in on some of the topics, and let us know, share in under journeys or something, share what your experience was like, if you feel like it, pictures of your object on your altar, anything like that. Any questions that you have, if things pop up, you have any questions, then you can throw those up on the topics as well. Remember, it's a community. A big part of shamanic work is community, and that's supporting each other, and that's stepping out of our comfort zones into being vulnerable with one another, and then repaying that vulnerability with each other by, with positive feedback, and hey, I had that same question, or something like that. So anyway, I will end the recording now, and then we can talk some more if anybody has any questions or anything they want to talk about. So thanks everyone, and